This is Algebra 1, Spring Test number 10 study guide. Part number 2, we're picking up on 13. Says to graph the inequality y is greater than negative 3x minus negative 3x plus 3. Nice and neat in mx plus b form for us. This is your m or your slope. This is your b or your y-intercept. B tells you where to begin. Tells you to begin at positive 3. This is your y-axis, the one that goes up and down. So at 1, 2, 3 is where your first point goes. That's where you begin. Your m is negative 3. Remember, m tells you where to move. So it says negative 3. All slopes are over 1 because it represents the rise over the run. Negative 3 tells you to go down 3 times. 1 tells you to go to the right 1 time. So down 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1 time, there's your second point. If this were just an equation, you'd draw a line and you'd be done. It's not just an equation, though. It's an inequality. So the first difference between these two is you're going to check here and determine if it's a solid or a dashed line. That does not say or equal to, so you're going to draw a dashed line through those. If it said or equal to, it'd be solid. So that's the first difference. The second difference is you're going to shade everything here or everything here. You're not going to guess. You're going to plug in a point and determine if it's true or not. The easiest point to plug in is the point 0, 0 because it's the easiest number or set of numbers to multiply by. So plug in place of y, plug in 0 is greater than in place of x, negative 3 times 0 or anything times 0. We know it's 0. Plus 3 is the rest. So 0 is greater than 3. This is what you have to determine if that is true or false. 0 clearly is not the bigger number. The mouth is not eating the bigger number. It's eating 0. So that's a false statement, which means everything over here is wrong, which means you shade everything this direction. And again, the shortcut is to kind of block everything out on one side, block everything else on the other side, and if it says greater than, you go above the line. But don't let that confuse you if that's tough for you. Write a compound inequality representing each situation, then graph your solution. Graphing a solution, we're only going to deal with a number line in this one, since we're only talking about one variable instead of two. All numbers at least negative 5. So you want to deal with x and negative 5 for that one. At least means the number has to be negative 5 or greater. Think about if somebody says, come with me to this place, and you say, well, how much money I need? And they say, well, you need at least $20. You know you're not going to bring $19. You're going to have to bring at least negative 5 right here or bigger than that. So the x itself has to eat. It has to be bigger than negative 5. But negative 5 is okay. So it's not only greater than, it's or equal to. The other one says at most 4. So you're going to do the same thing, x and 4. At most, you know that number can't be bigger than 4. So you know, in this case, 4, the x has to be the smaller value. But it can be 4. So it's or equal to. Now, in order to make it a compound inequality, you have to look at this little word right here, and, this conjunction. If it says and, x is going to go in the middle. Negative 5 is going to go first because it's the smaller number, and 4 is going to go after it since it's the larger one. Now ignore this one, the red one. And notice this one looks just like this one. So make the symbol go the same direction, just like that. Once you have that one, make this one here match it. It'll never go opposite directions. So here is your compound inequality. When you graph them, you're going to graph both of them on the same number line. Negative 5 and 4 is all you need to show. We know there's a bunch of numbers between those. It's not necessary because we're only interested in those two. And then graph them separately. Graph x is greater than or equal to negative 5 here. So we know that that's a colored in bubble. And we know greater than is everything bigger to the right. And then graph the other one. X is less than or equal to negative 4. Again, a colored in bubble. Less than means everything that direction. This is an and inequality, so it's showing the overlapping area between the two, negative 5 and 4. There's the graph. Number 15 says to find the slope. We know the slope formula is the change of y sub 2 minus y sub 1, that's the difference, that's why it's subtraction, over the change of x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Again, it's the difference, that's why it's subtraction. Most of us just say, okay, well, this is y sub 2. I know I got to take negative 2 and subtract 5 from it, though. Negative 2 minus 5, we know is negative 7. And I do the same thing with my x's. 7, and I subtract 5 from it. 7 minus 5 is 2. So my slope then is simplified. There's no numbers that go into negative 7 and 2. So the slope of those 2 points is negative 7, 2. It's negative 7 halves, negative 7 over 2. Number 16 says write an equation parallel to the given line that passes through the given point. If lines are parallel, we know that they have the same slope value. So y equals mx plus b. 3 over 2 is your slope. So you know your new line, its slope is going to be 3 over 2. It's also going to pass through the point 6, negative 6. So we have a point and we have a slope. So we're going to use point slope form. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. We're going to fill those values in. So y sub 1, remember, is this value for y, but it's the opposite of what it says. So in place of y sub 1, since it says minus, it says negative 6, we're going to put in plus 6. Equals m, that's this value here, 3 over 2. So in place of m, we're going to plug in 3 over 2. And then your x value is this one, but again, since it says minus x sub 1, we're going to put in the opposite of that, negative 6. And here is your equation in point slope form. Y plus 6 equals 3 halves times x minus 6. And then we're simplifying these expressions. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Negative 5 to the negative 2 power. Remember, negative exponent means to ride the elevator. Now this says negative 1 times negative 5 to the negative 2 power. Technically, it's not going to make a difference here, but only the 5 is going to ride the elevator, not the negative 1. So if those were different terms, it would make a difference. So what's left at the top is negative 1. 5 goes down, and it becomes raised to the positive 2. So what you're left with is negative 1 over 5 squared, which is 25. This one says negative 2 to the negative 2 power. Again, ride the elevator. This goes down since it's raised to the negative power. 1 over negative 2. That doesn't change. That stays negative. But this one does. It becomes positive. So negative 2 times negative 2, it's not going to make a difference, is 1 over 4. It's your simplified answer. 8g to the negative 6th, m to the 3rd. The only thing raised to a negative exponent is g. So it's the only thing that goes down. 8 stays at the top. M to the 3rd stays at the top. G to the negative 6 goes down and becomes g to the positive 6. 11 over c to the negative 7, d to the 3rd. The only thing raised to a negative exponent here is c. It goes up. 11 stays on top. C comes up and becomes to the positive 7th, and d to the 3rd stays on the bottom. 20 times 4 to the negative 3rd. First things first, this has to go down since it's raised to a negative exponent. 20 over 4 to the positive 3rd. 4 times 4 is 16. Times 4 is 64. 20 over 64. What number goes into both of those? The number 4 goes into 25 times, and it goes into 6 one time. So 5 times. It goes into 6 once. 2's left over. 4 goes into 24 6 times. So 5 over 16 is your simplified fraction. (12 to the negative 1 times 16 to the 0. This rides the elevator and goes down. 1 over 12 times anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 over 12 times 1 is simply 1 over 12. All of these bases are the same, 12, 12, and 12. So take the exponents, 5, 10, and 1, and add them all up. 5 plus 10 plus 1, 15, 16, 12 to the 16th. We're going to leave this one like this. Both of these bases are the same, 8.88. Add the exponents, 8.88 to the negative 9 plus 10. 8.88 to the first power, which is simply 8.88. H times 6h to the ninth. 6 times this coefficient would just be 1, so 6. And then the same bases, h and h. Again, same bases will give you h to the 1 plus 9, or 6h to the 10th. (27) 7x to the negative 8th times 6x to the 3rd. 7 times 6 is 42. X to the negative 8 times x to the 3rd is x to the negative 8 plus 3. 42 x to the negative 5th. 42 is not being raised to a negative exponent. Only x is, x to the negative 5th. That rides the elevator. 42 stays on top. X to the 5th goes to the bottom and becomes positive. G to the 7th times 4h to the 9th times g to the 4th. These coefficients are 1, so 1 times 4 times 1 will simply be 4. G to the 7th times g to the 4th is g to the 7 plus 4. That's going to be 4g to the 11th. And there's only one h, h to the 9th. So 4g to the 11th, h to the 9th. P to the 3rd to the 5th. Now you're not adding the exponents. Now you're multiplying, since it's a power to a power, 3 times 5, p to the 15th. N to the negative 4th to the 3rd, again, a power to a power, n to the negative 4 times 3, n to the negative 12th. We can't leave it like that. We have to ride the elevator. It goes down, 1 stays on top, n to the positive 12 is at the bottom. (31) x to the 9th to the 0. X to the 9 times 0 is x to the 0 power. That's 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Times x to the 7th to the 2nd power. X to the 7 times 2, x to the 14th. So 1 times x to the 14th is simply x to the 14th power. Negative h to the 4th to the 5th is negative h to the 4 times 5, which is negative h to the 20th. 8k to the 7th to the 3rd. Both terms get the 3rd power. 8 gets it, and k to the 7th gets it. 7 times 3. 8 to the 3rd, 8 times 8 is 64. And 64 times 8 is going to be 32. So 48, 49, 50. So we have 51. That doesn't sound right. Yeah, 51, which is 512. K to the 7 times 3, or k to the 21st power. And then the last two, you're raising powers to powers first. So everything's getting the 2nd power. 3 gets the 2nd power. X gets the 2nd power, and y to the 3rd gets the 2nd power, so 3 times 2. 3 squared is 9. X squared, y to the 3 times 2 is y to the 6th. Everything gets the 6th power in the second one, so x to the 6th, y to the 6th. So now you have the same bases multiplying by each other. 9 is alone, x squared times x to the 6th. That's x to the 2 plus 6, or x to the 8th power. y to the 6th times y to the 6th. Again, that's y to the 6th plus 6, or y to the 12th power. 9, x to the 8th, y to the 12th. Everything on the next one gets the second power. Negative 5 gets the second power. G squared gets the second power, so 2 times 2. And h to the 5th gets the second power, 5 times 2. Negative 5 squared, negative 5 times negative 5, 25. G to the 2 times 2, G to the 4th. H to the 5 times 2, H to the 10th. We'll do the same thing with the other one. Everything will get the 4th power. G to the 6 times 4, and H to the 4th times 4. G to the 6 times 4 is 24. H to the 4 times 4 is 16. Again, just like the last one, 25 is by itself. G to the 4 times G to the 24th is 4 plus 24, G to the 28th. H to the 10th times H to the 16th is H to the 10 plus 16, H to the 26th. 25 times G to the 28th, H to the 26th.